Hello and welcome to another edition of the Steelers Depot live stream. I am Alex Kozora, joining me as always, Bryan, for the next hour, answering as many of your Steelers questions as possible until 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Dave, the spring workouts have concluded. Last time we talked in the middle of OTAs, now that's passed, and so has minicamp. Aaron Rodgers officially signed, I think, our first live stream since that Rodgers decision became official. And so we'll have some questions about that, I'm sure. Dave, how you doing? Thanks for being here.
Yeah, happy Monday. Thanks for everybody that's here tonight. And we're in kind of those dog days, the slowest time of the NFL calendar, so to speak. And as you mentioned, got a lot of the big news behind us now with Aaron Rodgers finally signing and mandatory minicamp wrapping it up last week on Thursday. And now we hurry up and wait for the next 5.5 weeks, I guess, until this team reports to training camp in Latrobe. So not expecting a heavy news cycle at this point over the next several weeks. Not really. I suppose we could see a transaction or two. Not really expecting a trade or a big name signing at this point, although those are plausible to happen. But just hurry up and wait time.
It is. Been a lot of waiting this offseason on Aaron Rodgers, on the draft, and now waiting until training camp. Players report July 23rd. First practice July 24th. Will, of course, be their boots on the ground for all 15 public practices. Reminder, if you guys could like this stream, subscribe to the channel, of course. Check out the site on screen, SteelersDepot.com. Would really appreciate that. Get to your questions. You want a guarantee of your question being asked and answered by Dave and myself. You can send us a super chat, no obligation to do so, but you will move to the front of the line, and we appreciate all of our super chats. We got Mike here, Daniel Barry, two familiar names and faces to these live streams, so happy Monday to you guys as well. Mike says, what's the deal with Cordarrelle Patterson? I haven't heard a single peep on him, not even sure he was at minicamp last week. Are you, Dave? We talked about that last week briefly. Don't know if we ever saw him with our own two eyes in photos or video. There was maybe one report that indicated he was there, but have not heard much about Patterson this summer or the spring.
Yeah, I would imagine he was there at mandatory minicamp. I think someone from the media had said that he was there. One of the videos that I did see, though, of the running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers going through ball security drills, did not see him go through that. But I mean, look, these guys, they call it mandatory because it's supposedly mandatory. Now, obviously, T.J. Watt wasn't there, and that's a whole different story in and of itself. But I would imagine he was there. You know, is he dealing with something? Is he still trying, is he trying to get himself in shape? Are they telling him just, hey, you stand over to the side and don't get hurt and just get everybody water? I don't know. But I think if he wasn't there, that would have leaked out by now. And obviously he would have been subject to fines, if not excused, and everything that goes along with that. And not making a lot of money, obviously, in 2025. He's scheduled to earn base salary of $2.8 million. None of that is guaranteed. You do have to wonder with all the changes that have gone on with the running back room this offseason. Is he long for his roster spot at some point? Can we get closer to training camp and them maybe try to trade him for whatever they can get, or would he be out? Will he be at training camp, go all the way through training camp, and then maybe they try to trade him after that, and if not able to do so, maybe release him outright. So. Yeah, I imagine he is one player on the roster, especially on the offensive side of football, that's got some experience that people are kind of wondering what is the status with him. And, you just got to, I guess, sit and wait and see what happens here. And, I guess the next kind of line in the sand, barring something not happening, is him showing up at training camp and see if he's a full go there.
His roster spot is obviously on very uncertain footing right now. I think Pittsburgh will want to carry him through the summer to, make sure all the running backs stay healthy. No guarantee they do. Hopefully they do, but you never know. He is versatile. He can return. He can catch. He can play running back. He wore a lot of hats last season. Was he really effective? Not really. I do think the ankle injury he suffered against the Colts week 4 certainly hampered his play, missed a month A, and then B, when he came back, did not look like the same guy and did not get a chance to return a kick until November. He struggled very mightily in terms of his productivity or lack thereof. And also, he's cheap. As you said, the contract is not costing Pittsburgh much. We get that question a lot. Why is Patterson still here? I think those are the reasons why he's still here. But uphill battle to make the 53, no question about that.
Yeah, and even if you were to ultimately, or they were ultimately to cut him, and let's assume the roster displacement ended up being a minimum salary at 900 something thousand at the bottom of the 53. I mean, you're looking at saving a little less than $1.9 million in cap space. This team obviously isn't hurting for cap space at this time, even after Aaron Rodgers. So I tend to think that maybe they're trying to just hold on to him to see if maybe maybe if somebody does go down during portions of training camp, or if another team runs into an issue where they would like a player like Cordarrelle Patterson, that maybe they might be able to flip him last minute for a 7th round pick or a swap of a 6th and a 7th or something along those lines. So not cost them a lot of money, and well, once again, we'll just have to see if he shows up at training camp, if he's on the roster at that point, and what level of activity he has out there.
And I assume he has at least a good relationship with Arthur Smith, who brought him over from Atlanta. They were together there, the Falcons and Smith's last year in 2023. So maybe Smith's a guy that'll go to bat for him to say, keep this guy around. I might need him. Mike.
You do have to kind of wonder if he is reading the writing on the wall at this point, though, too.
Oh, sure. He's a vet. He knows his roster spot is taking a big hit when this team signs a running back in Kenneth Gainwell, even though that's a cheap 1-year deal, but still a free agent signing all the same. They draft a running back in the 3rd round. He can do the math. This team normally carries 3 backs, and right now he's number 4. Mike Odessa with a follow-up says, Alex, I didn't get to read your article on Arthur Smith and Rodgers pairing yet. Can you give the quick version? Did your views change after researching and writing that? It's really based off a conversation Dave and I had Friday on the podcast. Sometimes my article ideas will just come from the back and forth with Dave. And I don't know if my thoughts really changed. I wanted to just, outline that when we talk about quarterback freedom and how an offense should work, how much of the offense should be what the OC wants to do philosophically versus what the quarterback wants to do, and you have these veteran pairings like Rodgers, established future Hall of Famer, OC and Arthur Smith, kind of not who caves, but how much give does each side give? And it's a difficult conversation from the outside. There's a lot of nuance and layers to it. So I wanted to at least make that point. And then I think more importantly, talk about why the relationship could be stronger this year between Rodgers and Smith than maybe it was last year with Smith and Russell Wilson. Those are things we discussed on the Friday show, Dave, where if Aaron Rodgers can be healthy all summer, which Russell Wilson was not last year, and of course he missed the first 6 weeks of last year too, that's time where trust and being able to build a rapport, they lost that. And then also for Smith being in his 2nd year, and he's no longer the new offensive coordinator. It's not a new coaching staff he's working with. It's the same quarterbacks coach in Tom Arth. And so I think that'll just naturally create comfort. So I wanted to just kind of really write out my thoughts from the Friday show was all.
Yeah, with those two, and as long as, and much of was the same case, I guess, with Russell Wilson, you do have to kind of roll back in your head now and kind of wonder, boy, how much did Russell Wilson missing all that time in games early in the season end up impacting maybe initial plans, or what Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson maybe thought that they wanted to try to do? Because Russell Wilson got to play a small amount of plays during the preseason. How much did he actually do in training camp, Alex? Do you remember?
It was a very slow, intentional ramp-up period. I mean, every day he did something, even from day one of camp, but it was really a lot of individual work on the side, and then not a lot of pocket movement until the very end. By the very end of training camp, the last 5 or so practices, he would get in some teamwork and kind of went, not full bore, but pretty normal by the very end of training camp.
At the very least, I expect Aaron Rodgers to be vocal in conversations with with Arthur Smith about what he likes to do, especially in certain situations against certain coverages. And there's absolutely got to be some give and take there on both sides, because I do believe that Arthur Smith's going to want to do some of the core things that he likes to do. You know, we've talked a lot about the boots and stuff like that. I think to some degree Aaron Rodgers will be able to handle some of those and all, but there are certain, you know, how can Aaron Rodgers not, over a course of, you know, almost 20 years, have certain aspects and elements of offense, and especially situationally, that he wants to do. So I think as long as there's a good open line of communication between those guys throughout the summer, and more importantly, I think it is very imperative that, unlike last year, that Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, is able to take whatever they deem the appropriate level or amount of snaps during training camp, and then obviously into the preseason, that he's able to do that. You obviously want to see more continuity, and I can't help but keep going back to that article over the last week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I think, by Aaron Schatz, about how some of the observations and all, about how it certainly did not look like Aaron Rodgers was on the same page with a lot of his eligibles for a good part of that season last season, and things did get a little bit better once Devontae Adams joined the team. And then overall, I thought Aaron played better down the stretch. Now, obviously, they still didn't win the amount of games a lot of us thought that they would win, but it's got to be a good give and take, and between you know, Aaron and Arthur Smith, and there's no reason at this point to think that there won't be when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm. Just a reminder, with some more people in the chat as we're getting going past 10 minutes of our live stream, we're talking and answering your questions until 8 p.m. Eastern time. Be sure to like the stream to bring in more of Steelers Nation. I don't want to make excuses for Arthur Smith. I think there were I shouldn't say a lot. There were certainly issues last year I had with Arthur Smith, especially late in the year, but I think we don't acknowledge enough how difficult of a hand he was dealt last year. For everything being brand new, himself included, a brand new quarterback room. You're playing quarterback roulette once training camp begins. You lose Russ before the first camp practice. He comes back, plays a little bit in the summer in the preseason, goes down 3 days before your season starts, and then you're kind of in this, will he, won't he return? What week will he be given the all clear? That comes in after week 6, out of week 7. Then you go back to Rust, and Fields gets hurt. You can't use him in your wrinkle packages. Just a lot to deal with for an OC in his first year in Pittsburgh. And I think in his second year, with hopefully some more stability, things will get more comfortable and things will start moving forward.
And it does make you wonder how much of you know, how big a push Arthur Smith had when it came to recommendations about, you know, when the team was, what were they, 4-2 at the time?
Yep.
Yeah. And you know, you're winning games, and you seem to be getting a little bit more comfortable, obviously, with Justin. I guess you just kind of wonder if it was up to Arthur Smith, if indeed he would have stuck with Justin Fields moving forward once Russ was healthy.
The reporting was he would have, that Mike Tomlin went Lone Ranger, was the phrase as used by Jay Glazer, who knows Mike Tomlin as well as anybody. And so that would imply that Smith wanted to stick with Justin Fields.
And then how long did it take for you know, once the decision was made to go with Russell Wilson, for those two to start getting back on the same page again?
Yeah, there's certainly time lost, and I believe that relationship is one key reason why Russ did not return in 2025. All right.
Yeah, it's not hard to believe.
Right. Let's get back to the questions. Elhan says, are you more optimistic this season than last season? Because I am, with more holes filled, and now Khan's draft classes have at least had some time to develop. I hadn't gauged my optimism yet. Dave and I went through on the podcast today. You guys can check out a better or worse position group exercise offensively, and we both said that they either were the same or got better at each position group offensively: quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line. So maybe that'll create more optimism. But what say you, Dave?
I mean, I think as we went through the exercise earlier this morning, the main takeaway was on that side of the ball, at least they are that we came to determination that they are better than they were at, say, this time last year. But we have stated all along here throughout the course of this offseason that a lot would have to happen, even more than what's happened beyond the DK Metcalf, beyond the signing of Aaron Rodgers, that this does not seem like a Super Bowl caliber team at this point. I do think this team, if Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy and this offensive line can take the next step that people are envisioning, that this team will win games. I think they can win enough that they would at least be pushing for a wild card spot. We say this every year, how this team does within division usually goes a long way in determining some of that. How will they stack up against Baltimore and Cincinnati and, to a lesser degree, I guess, Cleveland, from where it looks like if you're going to rank them right now, even at this point, to me, you would have to have Baltimore number 1, Cincinnati number 2, and then the Steelers number 3 within the division. Now, a lot of things can obviously and do happen once the season gets underway, and injuries and what have you. Look, there's going to be questions about the Bengals defense going into this season. Are they going to be a team that has to score 35 to 40 points every week to win? Rolling it back specifically is how do the Steelers play within division, and can they go 4-2 in the division, and then do enough that maybe they are the second team in the AFC North and pretty much secure a wild card spot, say 1 or 2 weeks out, something like that. I think that's plausible. And then once again, you hate to say, for a team that says every year our goal is to win the Super Bowl, it feels like, they're saying it again, but it feels like the goal should be to win a playoff game.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the first step.
Right. So, and that's obviously something they haven't had in numerous years dating back to 2016. I'm optimistic enough at this point where I think that this team has a shot to get into the playoffs.
Are the Bengals definitely ahead of Pittsburgh overall? Because Pittsburgh's finished ahead of the Bengals each of the last at least 2 seasons, and the Bengals' problem is they are slow starters every year. They always have a hole to dig themselves out of. I think that the study I did, I believe it was late last month, showed they're the slowest starting team in the entire NFL. Pittsburgh is not a fast starting team, generally speaking, either, but the Bengals are easily the slowest starting group. In Pittsburgh, to your point, they hold up well against the AFC North, even in years where they're weaker. They're 9-8 in 2022. They hold up well against the AFC North.
You mean the Bengals or the Steelers?
In terms of what comment? The AFC North comment?
Oh, no. You were talking about the Bengals though, but you were talking about.
Yeah, I'm saying the Bengals are slow starting, and Pittsburgh is very good against the AFC North. They finished 500 or above every year since, I think, 2009, the NFL's longest streak. That seems to still consistently put them ahead of the Bengals, even though the Bengals have a higher potency and higher level of talent, obviously offensively.
Right, and I mean, what is going to be the big thing that everybody's going to have their eyes on when it comes to the Bengals this year? It's going to obviously be the defensive side of football, right?
Right, and have they made progress there? It feels like they're not really making strides in making that defense better.
And it's going to get even weaker if they don't have Hendrickson, right?
Right. Now, reportedly, contract talks have resumed with both sides, which is healthy and in progress for Bengals fans. Will something get done? I imagine something will get done, but it has certainly been very messy.
I mean, like I said, as I sit here right now, I still have to have the Bengals at number 2. Now, is it a huge gap between where I would have the Steelers at number 3 behind them? No.
Okay.
But in my head, I just think because of how explosive I think that offense can be for the Bengals, if they're able to overcome some of those things, especially late in games. Didn't they have some opportunities late in games as bad as the defense played last year that they still could have probably won some ball games? I mean, one win would have made a hell of a lot of difference for the Bengals last year, right? One more?
Sure. And they had, I think both losses against Baltimore were shootout heartbreakers where they certainly could have won and should have won based on the offensive production. I think the Bengals have certainly a higher ceiling than Pittsburgh, but also a lower floor than Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Is how I frame it. All right, let's go back to the questions. This one comes from Mark Cunningham. What's up, fellas? What would you say are the percentages we get a legit wide receiver 2 in the building before week 1? Maybe 50%. Dave, what are your thoughts adding a true number 2 starting wide receiver before September 7th?
I don't think they're done. I think someone that would be considered at least an upgrade over Robert Woods is plausible. The chances, I'd say at this point right now, I'd have to call it, probably 50-50 in my head.
So I had to make you lean one way or the other to go 51-49 in favor of or against. Which way would you go?
I would go to the lower side, I think, just because we seem to have sat here and having some of these same conversations a year ago, thinking that maybe they would do something along those lines, and obviously did not until the trade deadline came about. And even after they acquired Mike Williams, look at the amount of snaps that he was getting, and it just, really became a footnote. Does anybody, 5 years from now, will anybody remember that the Steelers traded for Mike Williams at the deadline?
Yeah, if he says legit receiver 2, so specifically wide receiver, I'll go with you. If they add Gabe Davis, hypothetically, is he a legit receiver 2? I guess we're getting into definitions, but does he fit that bill?
I think it's... I would just frame it as an upgrade over Robert Woods.
Okay. Well, I think Davis would qualify on that at the least.
Yeah. Now, look, do I think they're going to go out and trade for Terry McLaurin and give him a new deal, and especially one that would either equal or better DK Metcalf? I would be absolutely shocked if that happened.
Can I entertain the thought? We both agree that McLaurin likely to stay in Washington. If he ever became available and on the block, shouldn't Pittsburgh have interest?
Absolutely, they should. And, as we've talked about from cash and cap standpoint, if they absolutely, if that was their guy and they wanted to go after him and they wanted to give up the draft capital for him and they wanted to turn around and give him a contract either equal to or slightly better than DK Metcalf, they absolutely should. Look, it rolls back to Senior Bowl with McLaurin. I'm a huge Scary Terry fan. And I think you are as well, too. I think he's a very talented guy. And I think he's got enough left in him for a couple of two, maybe 3 good years that you could get out of him as well, too. And it goes without saying, he would be a great compliment to a guy like DK Metcalf, in my opinion. And so, yeah, if Washington got in a spot where they said, it's in our best interest at this point to try to entertain trade offers, yeah, the Steelers should be calling. They should be asking for permission to speak with his agent to see what it would take contractually to make him happy. Because whatever team does wind up, if they do trade for McLaurin, they're going to have to give him a contract. And it's going to have to be one, in my head, that either equals or just tops the one that DK Metcalf signed.
And I'm willing to do that. It's too expensive receiver contracts, but you're not paying quarterback a lot of money. Your offensive line right now is cheap. Bunch of guys on rookie deals. This is when you're supposed to spend on other positions, when you're not spending on quarterback. It's like a rookie contract in a sense. You maximize that window. Pittsburgh, not a rookie contract, but paying quarterbacks the last couple seasons pretty cheaply. So that's the mentality. MC says no legit receiver wants to come to the Steelers. DK Metcalf, to me, a legitimate receiver, wanted to come to Pittsburgh, decided to, be part of that trade request and got him to Pittsburgh overall. Seemed excited even at the time when Pittsburgh had no concrete idea of who the quarterback would be. So I still think you can sell that in Pittsburgh.
Look, if you're building a want list as a Steelers fan when it comes to adding a wide receiver, unequivocally Terry McLaurin should be at the top of that list. It's just the probability and the plausibility, in my opinion, just isn't there. I think you got to lower your sights a lot lower than that.
Right, and I would just say if a receiver wants paid and Pittsburgh is willing to pay him, then receivers will want to come to Pittsburgh if they can get the money that they're looking for, if that comes up with Terry McLaurin. All right, next question comes from Jared Mayak. Thanks for the Q&A, fellas. Incredible discussion on Friday and today's podcast. Appreciate that. He says,
thank you.
What happens to Corliss Waitman if Johnston's positive recovery continues? I'm assuming teams probably have eyes on him. Cameron Johnston, full go, fully recovered from last year's knee injury in the season opener. You now have two NFL punters in Corliss Waitman, who replaced Johnston last year, and of course, Johnson himself. So what happens, Dave?
You see a repeat potentially of what happened a couple of years ago with Mann, where you have two guys on your initial 53-man roster, hoping to trade one of them, and assuming Johnston is your guy, you're holding out hope that you can get even a bag of footballs for a guy like Corliss Waitman. And so and look, you want to hold on to Waitman as long as you can throughout the offseason. And thankfully, with the rules of the NFL, there's only the one cut down day, so you don't have to make any roster decisions before then. And you do, even though you're going to want to see Cameron Johnston not only during training camp but in the preseason punt a few balls. I think you very well, just to save the wear and tear, and if you're happy with what you had seen out of Johnston and his health and all like that, I do think you take the opportunity into 3 preseason games to try to showcase Corliss Waitman, and supposedly has become a better holder on top of things, so I don't think there's any of those concerns anymore. And I just think you hope to get into a situation where you have teams calling you for Corliss Waitman for some sort of late round draft pick in the 11th hour, or on into past heading into week 1 of the season.
I agree that would be the goal and attempt, but it didn't happen with Braden Mann. They rostered him for a couple days, then cut him when they couldn't make a trade happen. And could that happen again? Is Waitman, would he be subject to waivers if he was cut by Pittsburgh in August? Is he
how many
now achieved
vested?
enough accrued or credited seasons, whatever the metric is? And I ask that to say, if he's subject to waivers, then I think it's even harder to trade him, because there might be a team sitting high in the waiver order, or at least being able to do the math of these are the teams that have a punter. We'll just go claim him off the waivers. His contract is cheap, so we're not going to go trade for him. He was a vested guy and was not subject to waivers. Maybe there's a little more trade appetite to say we need to be able to trade this guy to make sure we get this guy.
Let me look at his contract real quick.
I mean, he picked up the accrued season last year. He was in Denver a couple of years ago.
I think he's at the where is he? His salary this year is 1.1. Isn't that for a third year play? Isn't that for a player with three seasons? Because
yeah, that's true.
I'd have to research.
I don't want to get too much in the weeds. But that'll be an element, I think, of whether or not you can trade him, if he'll be subject to waivers or not. All right, next question comes from David Kapoor. I think this was a reference to Aaron Rodgers from our earlier discussion. What kind of pockets will he have? Again, I believe referring to Rodgers, and that is such an important question, David. There should be so much pressure and spotlight on this offensive line to protect Aaron Rodgers and to have a healthy run game to take the pressure off of Aaron Rodgers. So as much as he gets the focus from the media, guys like Mike Greenberg on screen right now, this offensive line is the real key to success and how far this offense, and by extension, how far this team can go.
Yeah, I mean, all eyes have to be on the development on the offensive line this year, and especially not only in the running game, which has to be better, but the passing game as well too. So, that's something that we're going to learn, I think, because we didn't get to see a lot of Troy Fautano last year, unfortunately, and what we did see out of Broderick Jones over at right tackle left a lot to be desired still. And obviously the hope is with him switching over to the left side, he'll be a better player. Lost a little bit of weight, at least initially. And you got a second-year guy in Mason McCormick, who I thought played well as a rookie, but there were some hiccups along the way for him. I think I have less worries about Zach Frazier and all, but how this offensive line develops this year is going to be key, not only for this year but potentially future years. How they act in the draft and free agency potentially next offseason as well too. Man, if you can get healthy and solid play out of all 5 of these offensive linemen this year, then it should make the decision easy on Broderick Jones on the 5th-year option next May. And then, potentially you're going into the draft looking to maybe replace one offensive lineman in Isaac Sayamalo, and guards are a little bit cheaper in the draft than they are tackles.
Yeah, no question. And if Pittsburgh has to address left tackle, left guard, and quarterback, and who knows what else, receiver, corner, etc., all next offseason, it's a very difficult task to achieve all of that. So big year for Broderick Jones, big year for this offensive line in general.
And here, something we've talked about, since Aaron Rodgers came into the discussion that we've had several times on the podcast. He just cannot continue to take the kind of hits that he took last year with the Jets, man. Those things, and credit to him. Like I said, there were a couple times that I was screaming, man, stay down, brother. But, he got up, and to his credit, for a guy his age to take those kind of hits, it's just at some point, a guy at his age, those hits add up over the years and all like that. You cannot subject. And we talked earlier in the podcast, this morning about, you can't put him in situations where he's having to drop back the amount of times that he dropped back last year with the Jets. And you can't put him in situations late in games where you're in must-pass situations where the defense is knowing that they're going to be able to tee off on the offensive line and things of that nature, where your final 18, 20 snaps of the games are all passes and you're dropping them back because you got to move down the field and all. So they do have to protect him. Absolutely can't let him take the amount of hits. And I think the 40 number sack total was something that I don't think it's going to be good results as a whole if he goes over that 40 sack number.
Last year, we were talking about Russ and Fields keeping under 50 sacks. I think collectively, they were right at 49. I think we visited that one time on the podcast. And so 40, the number this year. Aaron Rodgers, second most pass attempts in the NFL last season. That's not good for him or good for Pittsburgh if that stat continues. Static MA says, what do you make of the Mount Washington Mercedes Lewis comparison Aaron made? Is he going to be a favorite target of his? That was Aaron Rodgers during his meeting with the media last Tuesday, talking about not having a tight end with the unique size of Darnell Washington, the last one being Mercedes Lewis. Favorite target feels like a stretch, Dave, but I think that's a guy that Rodgers will want to make sure stays consistently involved.
And as we mentioned, his numbers so far as targets and receptions, all like that, is it plausible to think that he can increase those numbers in 2025? The answer is yes. But I would be cautious in barring an injury to Freiermuth and some other key playmakers on offense, of thinking that we're set up for a season where Darnell Washington's getting 50 targets, 40 receptions, something along those lines. I would expect to see more of the leak out kind of stuff, that he was known for doing at Georgia, try to utilize in certain situations the yards after the catch, and people it's a big guy to have to go after to try to bring him to the ground. And then we did get to see a little bit of Darnell Washington going down the middle of the field in certain situations, and I think you'll see a little bit of more of that. But I think favorite target is a little rich, especially if Freiermuth stays healthy and all those, and they're able to run the ball like we hope that they will be able to do. But yeah, I think you could see an increase in targets and an increase in receptions. And what did we say his average yards per reception was last
over
year?
10-3.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you could increase the receptions and get the same average yards per catch out of them, I mean, that's a win, along with hoping that he rounds a little bit fuller into a better blocker as part of his development.
Especially with all the 5-yard boots he catches, which brings that average down. But he had a couple of downfield plays. The Giants game, I believe Baltimore went down the seam one time, and so there was a little bit of that vertical element to his game that we'll hopefully see with him. And I think also Pat Freiermuth needs to be used vertically. He was used too underneath which was an issue his rookie year, was less of an issue his sophomore season. So want to get back to that usage of him being more than just the underneath safety valve. But he'll certainly fill that role for Aaron Rodgers in this passing game. Ronald Hall, guys, I was surprised to hear that you both feel the running back room is better this year than last. Feels like expectations for Caleb might be too high. That's a fair critique, Ronald, and there's some unknown there. Obviously, 2 new players. It's a pretty new-looking room, but I think Johnson with the big playability that he can hopefully offer. Gainwell, I think, will find a niche. And maybe I was cheating a bit because I was thinking about Warren being so beat up last year during the season that a healthy Warren as the lead guy will hopefully produce and should produce better results. So maybe I was not playing my own game correctly, but I think it can be better, Dave.
Well, let's take them one for one. Jaylen Warren, are you expecting more than 511 rushing yards and 1 touchdown out of him in 2025 as far as a rusher goes?
Yes.
I would agree. Are we talking about 1,000-yard season for him, though?
I mean, that depends on how many carries he gets. What does that committee look like? Arthur Smith does love himself a good running back committee, so that's going to be one element that's harder to envision, I think, right now. And I'm guessing if there was any odds on Warren, the over-under is under 1,000 yards and probably fairly comfortably, I would guess it's sitting at 800 yards right now.
Right. I would agree with that. I think it's hard to imagine Jaylen Warren hitting 1,000 yards rushing and thus replacing what you're losing in 1,000-yard rusher in Najee Harris. So but I would assume and think that he would be able to easily top the 511 rushing yards last year. And then it becomes a point of how much does that decrease what you need out of losing Najee Harris and the 1,000 yards that he put up last year? And can you get that done with a combination of your other backs of Caleb and Kenneth Gainwell? And my feeling is yes. And my feeling at least on the now to Najee's credit, and he kind of superseded what I envisioned his career in Pittsburgh having as far as explosive plays went of 20 yards or more. Even though it wasn't up there, he did produce a few more in that area. But I think Caleb Johnson has the ability to deliver you even more. And even if you want to break it down to 10 or more yards per rush, I think Caleb gives you the ability to do that. So I think if you just look at the top 3 from last year in Warren, Najee, and for a little while there, Cordarrelle Patterson, and then superimpose it of what you think you can get out of Warren, Caleb, and Gainwell. I give the nod to the latter.
And it's not just about the overall numbers, the rushing yards, the totals. It's the efficiency of it, the yards per carry.
Successful plays.
Their run success rate, which was not good enough. Now, the offensive line has obviously a big role in that, and they had injuries last year, and the offensive line certainly played far from their best, and so that always has an impact on how well that run game looks overall, game circumstance, etc. But I think the potential is for more efficiency, more big plays, and that's why I felt like it would be better. Now, I do think you're going to miss some things from Najee Harris we took for granted the last 4 years. The durability, Najee Harris, always available, never a question, didn't miss a game for his run style, for the physical demands of the position. Really rare, really impressive. You probably won't see that again in Pittsburgh or anywhere in the NFL for quite some time. The ball security overall, Eagles game aside last year, he took care of the football, he protected the football. Warren's had some fumble issues. We'll see about Caleb Johnson, what his ball security is like at the NFL level. So those are 2 factors I don't want to overlook, but hopefully the efficiency will win out in the end.
And I guess to his main point, are we too bullish on Caleb Johnson at this point? I get it. And look, I mean, most of you listening and reading my writings and tweets over the years know that I'm more in line of the fungibility of running backs. But I am for whatever it's worth, and have said for quite a while that I am bullish on Caleb Johnson. And even rolling back to my mock draft, if I would have stuck to my guns and not let Alex talk me out of it, in some of those exercises where I kind of wondered how many backs would be off the board, say the third round or what have you. If I could have unequivocally been promised that he would have been on the board for that third round pick, he would have been in my mock draft, because I felt that he was the best fit overall for this offense. And then even moving past the draft after the bit of study that I'd done with him in pre-draft, looking more at him post-draft and all, and what he did and the groupings that he ran out of and the schemes that he ran out of, it even confirmed my belief that he's the perfect back for what I think Arthur Smith wants his backs and schemes, wants out of that position, specifically there. Young guy, I think good at, not great after first contact, but good enough. And once again, has the ability to home run some teams on the ground, something that we haven't seen enough of when it comes to 40-plus yard runs out of any Steelers running back for the last several years there. So, it's a lot of projection that goes within that. But for me to no longer be as bullish as I am on Caleb Johnson as I am right now at this point, it would have to be because he's not getting it done on the field once the regular season gets underway.
Yeah, pass pro, ball security, details, those will all be keys with Caleb Johnson, but there should be a different run style, different type of back than Pittsburgh has had in the last couple of years, at least in terms of comparing him to Najee Harris. Mike Adesso says, obviously a good problem to have, but could we be looking at having to give Joey Porter Jr., Broderick Jones, Darnell Washington, and Nick Herbig all extensions next summer, maybe even Jalen Warren too, or do you let him walk? Hopefully there's a couple guys you're extending. I don't know if it's going to be all of them. That would probably seem unlikely going last year of their rookie contracts, but if you can get even half of those, you're probably feeling pretty good.
Well, first and foremost, I think when you look at the Steelers and potentially some of the conversations that we might be having next offseason as far as extensions with players still with time on their contract, I think the conversation starts with Joey Porter and Keanu Benton. You obviously, with the way this team likes to draft and re-sign players, you would have to think that those two are at the top of the list as far as hoping they take steps forward, more steps forward in 2025, and thus put you in a situation where it's no question asked. Let's go ahead and get these. And also, you got to think about the cash perspective and how much this team will likely have to spend. They'll probably be looking to dump cash into players such as Porter and Benton. So I think the conversation starts about potential extensions next offseason. Easily starts with Joey Porter and Keanu Benton.
Now, you didn't mention Broderick Jones. Is that because of some other reason or because of the fifth-year option would give them some more runway to figure all that out?
Yeah, the big question with him is whether or not you're picking up the fifth-year option.
Right. And if he plays well, then he'll get the option. And you could have extension talks, but more likely is you'll wait until the season after to do extension talks.
Right, because technically he would have, 2 years left on his contract, right?
Right, technically.
So when have we ever seen this team pick up a fifth-year option and immediately after doing so going out and signing him into an extension?
Well, you'd have to check Watt and Minko, and those were the year after.
Those were the years after.
I mean, it'd just be nice to pick up a fifth-year option on a player. Hasn't happened since Minko last, but the last drafted player in Pittsburgh was Watt, drafted in 2017.
And then when it comes to Herbig, yeah, you would potentially like to have those kind of talks. But as we talked, I don't know, 3 shows ago, is he going to try to Van Ginkel his way to a nice payday? Sort of in the same situation as Andrew Van Ginkel was for at the start of his career. Is he a guy that increasingly gets better year after year and then looks at the depth? Let's assume TJ Watt has a new contract. Let's assume Highsmith's still in your plans of moving forward. Then it's kind of hard to there's going to be a ceiling as far as what you're going to be willing to pay Herbig, that he might not want to sign the contract and say, look, I'd rather ride it out my last season and then see what kind of reception I get in free agency. Nothing prevents you from signing a guy during those months before he actually hits free agency either. But to me right now, it's less realistic that the finality of it is this time next year or by week 1 of the 2026 season that we're talking about the Steelers having signed Nick Herbig to a contract extension.
Right. It's just a tough sell based on the depth chart overall, but Darnell could get a deal done. They like Darnell, plays a lot of valuable snaps. If Arthur Smith remains OC into 2026, which I assume he will, then that's even more incentive to give Darnell Washington a good extension, which probably won't cost a ton of money. I don't know what the number is, $7 million, $6 million on a Washington extension.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the market obviously moves between now and then. Let's look real quick at some tight ends around the league here. I mean, you've got
got paid last year, which was what, $12 million per year?
12.1. You've got guys down there like
what did Josh Oliver get?
How about a Noah Gray, $6 million a year?
Okay.
Josh Oliver, $7 million a year. I think you got to what do you think about Mike Gesicki? He's at 8.5. You got a Hunter Henry that's never really been over the top, and he's at $9 million. So I don't know. I just spitballing this early out, I would say, and it's kind of a huge range here, but maybe anywhere between 6 and 9.
Okay, that sounds right. Maybe lower end. I would say 6-7 million is where I'm at initially, but we'll see. We'll see what the cap goes. And then Jaylen Warren is a wild card. It really just depends on how the season goes. I've made the stat, or I've had the stat, and we'll repeat it again, Dave. The Pittsburgh has not signed a running back to a long-term deal, to a second contract since Willie Parker in 2006. And I know they wanted to with Le'Veon Bell, and Bell decided to walk and test the waters. But point is, it just hasn't happened in quite some time. And Najee Harris, the latest running back who's walked.
And barring something changing, it doesn't seem like he's going to come out. They're going to extend him this offseason. Could they? Yeah, but I think it would be in Jalen's best interest anyway to kind of wait this thing out.
Sure. Got a very generous super chat, $20 from our friend Vegas TJG, who says, stay hydrated out there, Dave. Is it a hot one in Vegas today?
Oh, man, it is. It's already, we're in what I like to call the 100 days of 100 now. So, yeah, it's oven hot out there. We don't have the humidity out here, but hot is hot still.
Good news, Dave is an indoor cat, so not a lot of outside needed, I think, for Dave Bryan. All right, let's see. Good question there, Mike. Appreciate that. Jared's asking about, is Payton Wilson primed to make a noticeable leap in year 2? Dude was a steal in the draft and showed flashes last season. I'm really optimistic. I'm really bullish, to use Dave's term, on Payton Wilson in his second season.
Yeah, you even think he could do the 100 tackle mark, right?
He had 78 last year in less than half the snaps. So 100, if he gets that 3-4 base package roll on top of his nickel reps, 100 is certainly realistic.
I think, and you circle back to him coming out of North Carolina State and all like that. It was never really so much about looking long-term with Payton Wilson as far as how he would be able to develop based on what he had put on in college. It was all the injury concerns, right? So if he can continue to stay healthy, if he can build upon what he did, as a rookie, there's no reason to think that he can't at least come close to that 100 tackle mark and play. I don't know. What are we looking at? Snaps, 700?
Well, it depends on how those snaps are distributed. Does he pick up the 3-4 role? He was playing in just nickel last year. Landon Roberts was eating into those reps because he was better against the run. Payton Wilson must get better against the run to expand his snap count, his productivity overall. Does he get that role, or does it go to Malik Harrison or Cole Holcomb or something else? It's hard to say right now. Yeah,
but it is easy to, at the very least, be bullish on him heading into his second season.
Agreed. No question about that. El Noel says, who will return kicks? Who will return punts? Gainwell, Patterson not cut yet, but Steelers last in kick return yardage last season. Calvin Austin does not seem like a great idea on top of more receiving duties. I think Austin will stick in the punt return role, even as a maybe de facto starting receiver. He's not going to play quite that number of snaps. They're going to rotate in some guys. Austin's been successful. The punt return touchdown last year against the Giants. Kick returns, good question. I think Gainwell is one. The other, I'm uncertain of. Will it be a Caleb Johnson? Patterson not looking like he'll make the 53, so that may be an open spot come training camp.
Where did Calvin Austin land in punt return rankings in the NFL?
I think he was fifth in average.
10.3. Great memory by you. 10.3. Fifth overall for the players must have at least 20 punt returns to qualify. So finishing fifth at 10.3, that's nothing to sneeze about.
There weren't a ton of qualifiers, if my memory serves me even better. There were maybe 11 or so, but still a good showing.
Let's see, 16 of them,
okay,
it looks like.
That's actually decent, and he had to really finish in almost that top quarter. So obviously the punt return touchdown helped those numbers, but he had other good returns. There were some called back by penalties too. So yeah, I think he's going to stay as punt returner.
He did have, though, 15 fair catches last season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot that's dictated by... field position being backed up and all that kind of stuff. He's pretty good at doing the fake fair catch, where you fake the fair catch, everyone runs to you, and the ball bounces into the end zone. So I like him back there. Kick returns, though, Gainwell, who
wide
else?
Open.
Caleb Johnson, Roman Wilson, maybe someone else emerges. Yeah, I don't know right now.
I would be surprised if it's Roman, but
Robert
I can
Woods
see Caleb
did some kicks last year. He returned 5, and not that we're loving putting a 33-year-old Robert Woods back there, but. They put worse. They put Gary Russell, Najee Davenport. We've seen that stuff before. Darrell Watson, etc.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those things I think is going to come out during the wash during camp and the preseason there.
Run by you. What's Waitman's trade value? Going back to our earlier discussion on Corliss Waitman, it's 7th round pick swap, if anything, Dave.
Yeah, I think at best you swap a 6 for a 7th or something like that. It's low.
Darkshine the Kid, how do we feel about a healthy Kyle Pitts? His words all in caps there. What's the value for a healthy Kyle Pitts?
I mean, as far as trade value goes and all?
Seems so.
Man, you'd have to think Atlanta would want at least a 3rd.
Agreed. Really hard to see them taking a 4th at the start of the season. I had this thought, and I hadn't expressed it yet, but... what about a mid-season trade? If Atlanta's season's not going too great, he's going to be a free agent. Do you get him for a 4th at the deadline for a rental?
I mean, there's going to be several names tossed around at that point, right?
Sure, but that's to me more likely for a trade to occur than the start of the season. Why would Atlanta want to do it before the year? Why would Pittsburgh want to give up a 3rd before this year begins?
I mean, even if you got him at halfway through the season, are they going to be in a position where they'll be able to acquire a $5 million salary for the rest of the way?
Yeah,
without having to restructure. I mean, there's always ways to do it.
Yeah, they'll make it work.
I mean, if that's the guy that you think can make you over the top, especially if you have injuries or whatnot, if you're making a push and you think, all right, we lost Freiermuth lost Freiermuth and all, and here we are at. I don't know, what week of the season is that?
Week 9 is the deadline. Tuesday.
So they would have
week
played
9.
8 games at that point?
Yes, because of the week 5 bye.
All right. So, if things look like they're going good, you lose a guy such as Freiermuth and
even if you don't, even if you want to add a weapon, I mean, it's a rental. I know you're only getting it for half the year, but then you would be in line to potentially get the comp pick back. No guarantee,
sure.
But you would get that aspect of it. Atlanta gets the 4th round pick right now. They're going to make moves in free agency. Maybe they don't want to have to wait on that comp pick. I mean, I'm just spitballing, but something I think could come up midseason.
Right. Well, I'll just leave it at this. The probability and plausibility would be more in line with ahead of the trade deadline.
Yeah, just because I can't see Pittsburgh giving up a 3rd before the year begins, or really at all for Pitts, or really anybody, unless it's some uber star that you can get past this year. And I can't see Atlanta giving him away for less than a 3rd before the year begins.
Right.
All right, good question there, Dark Shine the Kid. Simon is here. Gerald is here. Yeah, maybe we talked McLaurin too much. We've tried to stay away from it, Gerald, but it's been talked about a lot more in other circles. Wanted to at least just throw that suggestion out there. Jeremy Nelson, does Connor Hayward need to move to fullback to stay on the team? I think it's more about what other guys do around him. Does a DJ Thomas Jones, does he stick, the rookie from South Alabama? Hayward at least has the special teams calling card. Can somebody else offer that and more offensively? That may be the judge of whether or not Hayward sticks.
Can a guy that can help easily replace him, potentially on offense in a blocking role, give you enough on special teams to help diminish what Connor Hayward gives you there? I think Alex wrote an article several weeks ago that his spot's not safe.
Yeah, I don't think it is. Now, Darnell Parham, I think, got hurt on the same day I wrote that article, at least it was published, and so that boosted the chances for Hayward. It just, Arthur Smith had really no vision of how to use him last year. Only had 4 receptions all season, was using it on Y-off, split zone, cut block role primarily. Just really no way to get him on the field, barely played late in the season. That's a guy that just might not fit the system.
Right. And as far as his special teams work went last year during the regular season, Connor had 8 total special teams tackles when you add in primaries plus assist.
All right, yeah.
And he had 1 fumble recovery as well, too. So he still gives you a little, obviously, something in that area.
Yeah, productive on there, and Danny Smith could fight for him, but we'll see. A new name here, and I may pronounce it incorrectly, so I apologize in advance. But Ashish Bial says, "Hey, Dave and Alex, I know it's early, but is it looking like Trice and Eccles as the backup corners?" I would say so. I think Trice, assuming good health, will have a dime role too, so he'll have a sub-package role, and Eccles maybe get some slot work. But yeah, I think those guys will be primarily backup outside corners.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment where we sit right now, and then potentially, Pierre? As a special team.
Right. I don't want to see him play another snap on defense. He's just too hard to trust above the neck. He's physically talented and gifted, but he's a good teamer, but that's all really. He should be a number 5 type of corner. Mm-hmm. All right, a couple more minutes. We'll get to as many questions as we can. Any news on who is going to be the green dot defender this year? This is from Vegas. Queen never looked comfortable with it. He's going to have to get comfortable, Dave. I think Queen will be handling green dot duties again as an every down inside backer.
Yeah, got to have communication. Got to be able to not have 2 linebackers cover 1 player.
Yes.
It's barring Queen getting injured, it's his.
Yeah, MC, appreciate the shout. If you guys could do one last quick like for the live stream for the future going forward, would appreciate that. Mike, good suggestions. I thought about maybe we should bring on some around the AFC North guys this year to kind of get their insights on how the off seasons have gone to kind of fill the time during this dead period. So maybe we'll do that for a future episode of the podcast.
Yeah, maybe we'll reach out to a couple of our guys starting as early as next week or something, because we got about 5.5 weeks here of a lot of time to fill.
Nothing but time over here on Steelers Depot. Vegas says, hopefully all the players we lost play nearly all the snaps so we can get the maximum value of comp picks. Absolutely. Play well, pick up those comp picks, get thirds for Fields and more. Technically, they could get a third for Russ. It's probably going to be maybe at best a 4th, more likely a 5th. But yeah, the more you can get, the better.
Yeah, always root for the guys that leave to help with the compensatory picks, except when they play the Steelers.
So I was going to add that caveat at the end, and starting in week 1 when Justin Fields sees Pittsburgh. Simon Winstanley says, do you guys think Aaron Rodgers might raise the floor in terms of possession and that this might lead to a massive step up in the way the Steelers defense is viewed again this season?
We talked a little bit along those lines earlier today about how, early in games specifically and really first half overall, can we see this offense, and we did even hit a little bit on time of possession. Can we see this offense do a little bit more? And obviously that relates to scoring points no matter how quickly or slow that comes about. But can we see this offense overall, especially in the first, say, half of the season there, stay on the field and kind of keep the defense out of those situations where they're having to log those 68, 72, 78 plays per game. And what impact will those have later on in the season in doing so? The answer to the question, I think that's obviously the hope, that you get a guy like Aaron Rodgers in there. You see the first quarter, or you see the first 2 drives more time, more than, what'd you say it was in totality? 5 out of the first 2 opening possessions were touchdowns last year.
Correct. Those all came on the second possession because Pittsburgh did not have an opening touchdown drive last year.
I mean, imagine if you got that up by 3 or even 5, what that would do in several of these games, especially in the, assuming several of them came early on in the season. We don't want to sit here around the bye week writing posts like, the Steelers have 1 offensive touchdown in the first 2 offensive possessions in games heading out of the bye, or heading into the second half of the season. And can running the football, maintaining possession of the football, help the defense overall and keep them fresher later in games? Yeah, I think that's obviously the hope, and I would be kind of bullish on that happening. At least that's my hope.
And Simon saying we already spoke about time of possession. No, you're fine, Simon. Appreciate the question all the same. Also, just quick interruption. $20 super chat from Tony Anderson. Want to shout that out before we get out of here.
Thank you, Tony.
Says, great content, guys. You're the best around. Appreciate that, Tony. Were you the one that sent the very generous super chat last time? I think you were, so we appreciate that very, very much, Tony. Yeah, I think obviously the more you can shorten the game will be better. Pittsburgh did that really well the first month of last year, where the defense was barely playing and the offense was dominating time of possession and wearing teams down. The Chargers game a great example of that. Rodgers will have an impact, no question, but I think to get a very foundational answer, what dictates those things, time of possession, controlling the ball, the pace, is your offensive line, your run game. Can you win the battle up front? If your trenches can do that, that's how you really truly control time of possession and the tone and tempo of the game. I think it's a little less controlled by Rodgers. He'll have an impact, obviously, on third down, but I think the offensive line, your run game, will really dictate that for a run-heavy Pittsburgh Steelers team. Pittsburgh has been, we talk about how bad they are first drives. They've been really bad on first down for many, many years. They were bad on first down last year, one of the worst teams in football, if you look at the numbers. And so I think that's a number to really focus in on. Can you become a better first down team than you have been for several seasons?
Imagine a world come week 1 of the 2025 season against the Jets, Alex, where the Pittsburgh Steelers take the opening kickoff, go 75 yards in 12 plays. They convert 2 third downs, and they cap the drive off with a 12-yard touchdown pass from Aaron Rodgers to Pat Freiermuth in the middle of the end zone.
Dave, you and I dancing in the streets if that happens. I'll come out to Vegas, dance with you.
If the optimism level would be off the chart for when is the last time the Steelers had an opening drive touchdown in week 1 of a regular season?
Good question. Good stat of the weird. Wasn't last year. I don't know what it was the year before. That was at the 49ers. It wasn't the 49ers game where they got blown out, where they did not have a first drive touchdown that came before half. The 2023 opener, I'm blanking on that game. I'm sure somebody in chat can remind. 2023 opener. Any recollection what that game was?
That was the 49ers. You mean 2022?
No, I'm saying 2023.
2023, they played the 49ers.
Oh, did they? Okay. I wasn't sure. I was thinking that was a different year. Okay, then no, they didn't score a first opening drive touchdown then. 22 was the Bengals game?
Right, and
Crazy
their
overtime.
opening scoring was a Minkah Fitzpatrick 31-yard interception return, and their first offensive score was a Boswell 20-yard field goal. So that wouldn't have been it. 2021,
Buffalo?
Week 1 was Buffalo. No, they did not have an opening drive touchdown there. 2020 would have been
Giants.
The Giants.
Night game.
Boswell, 41-yard field goal to open up the scoring for the Steelers there late in the first quarter.
19 was Patriots, where they got blown out, I believe. Correct?
19 was the Patriots, and they did not have a touchdown in that game.
Right, a field goal, 3 points. So 18... I don't know.
2018, the Browns. James Conner 4-yard run was at the opening possession. No.
Okay. Was that the tie? Pittsburgh tie that game?
That was the tie, yeah.
Okay.
Their first touchdown came, I think late. When was there?
And MC is saying the Bengals well, he's saying December 23rd. That's the first time. That's the last time they had an opening drive touchdown in a game. Dave's saying in week 1, the last time in a season opener. So 2017, that was a good year for the offense.
Browns,
maybe.
Chicolo blocked a punt for recovery in his end zone. Their first offensive touchdowns was to Jesse James from Roethlisberger late in the second quarter. So I imagine that wasn't one.
Right.
16. Boy, we're back to 2016 against the Redskins.
Lead to 16. Last playoff one year.
Antonio Brown had the first touchdown from Roethlisberger, 29 yards out with 10-10 in the second quarter, so not one there. 2000. Boy, we're having to go down a rabbit hole here.
Stream running long tonight for that. Let's figure out the answer.
Patriots, no, nothing in the Patriots in 15. 2014, we've gone down. Oh, Lord. Nope, not in 2014 against the Browns. 2013, week 1, the Titans, they only had, they did not have a touchdown, or they had a late touchdown in that game. So no there in 2013. 2012, he didn't know what kind of rabbit hole we would go down here.
It's a good time.
Swisham had the opening field goal in against the Broncos in 2012, 2011. Boy, this is going to be a hell of a stat of the weird if we ever get there. No against the Ravens in 2011 first week. 2010
this will
against
be
the Falcons. No. 2009.
Okay. Right.
We've gone down the rabbit hole. I mean, let me check here.
Please.
2009, no. 34-yard pass to Roethlisberger was in the second quarter, 1:22 left. 2008, Texans. Willie Parker's 7-yard run with 5:44 left. Was that
maybe?
That was not the opening.
Oh, no. So close.
No, that was it. So week 1, 2008.
You said Willie Parker?
Willie Parker.
Dang, 2 Willie Parker references this live stream. That's a good achievement.
Wow. They took over, let's see, they took over on downs in that game. They went 8 plays, 52 yards, 7-yard run by Willie Parker, 2000 and so maybe that'd be some kind of an omen, right? 2008 Super Bowl year, right? Or no, wait. No.
08. Yeah.
08. So how many years has that been?
17, 16, remember
17?
The math? Almost 2 decades. Far too long. That's the answer. Far too long. That's a really good stat.
All right. I've teed you up for a good stat of the weird to have ready to go in week 1 when Aaron Rodgers hits Pat Freiermuth to close out a 75-yard 12-play drive.
Now they got to do it. They have to score. We've spent too much time for this stat to go to waste. So good stat, Dave. That's the note we're going to leave on. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us, asking some great questions. Be sure to like the stream, subscribe to the channel, of course. Check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. Really would appreciate that. Dave, as always, thank you for your hard work and being here tonight.
All right. Thanks for going down the rabbit holes with me. And thanks for putting on this and moderating it the way you always do. Thank you for everybody that tuned in tonight. Pretty decent crowd. And peace and love, everybody.
There'll be an archive version of this on Steelers Depot, also on wherever you listen to our podcast. It'll be on there in audio format as well. So appreciate you guys being here, and we'll talk to you soon.